The alien woman was loved for the first time. Why do you love me, human? The warships moved like shadows across the rim of the galaxy, and every shadow carried a rumor. Some spoke of a weapon that walked like a woman, a living creation of power and precision, one whose long ears marked her as something not born of natural chance. Entire fleets whispered her name as though it might summon her, though she had no name of her own, only a designation etched into military records. She had learned to endure those whispers, the way one endures the hum of an engine, constant, unpleasant, but unchangeable. It was during one of those endless transfers, shackled inside a carrier that smelled of oil and recycled air, that fate made its interruption. A human soldier, too ordinary to draw notice, found himself on the same ship. His armor was dented in all the wrong places, and his weapon was patched with more tape than alloy. He walked with the weary gait of someone who had survived not through brilliance, but through a stubborn refusal to be killed. When the ship came under fire near the asteroid belt of Drelf, chaos tore through the corridors, alarms shrieked, and metal groaned as if the stars themselves were bending the hull. In the pandemonium, he stumbled into her cell. His first words, shouted over the roar of explosions, were not commands or accusations, but, "Are those ears real? Or is this some kind of fancy helmet?" For the first time in years, she didn't know whether to be insulted or amused. When the cell door lost power and slid open, she stepped past him with the grace of a predator. His rifle came up on instinct, but she only tilted her head, ears flicking as if mocking him. "Shoot me and the ship explodes," she said. Her voice was calm, the kind of calm that unsettles men who've stared at battlefields. "Explodes? Just from shooting you?" he asked, lowering the rifle a little. "That's one heck of a warranty clause." Together, though unwillingly, they ran as the carrier split apart under enemy fire. She guided him through corridors with uncanny precision, bypassing sealed hatches, by touching her fingers to the panels, releasing sparks of energy that made metal sing. He pretended not to be impressed, though his muttered comments gave him away. "Remind me never to play cards with you. You probably shuffle decks with your mind." They reached an escape pod just as the ship broke into fragments. The pod launched, spinning through debris and fire until gravity pressed them flat against the seats. Silence returned, broken only by the soldier's labored breathing. She turned her gaze on him, her ears still trembling slightly from the vibrations. "Why are you alive?" she asked, more curious than cruel. "Bad aim from the universe," he replied, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead. "It's been trying to get rid of me for years, but I keep tripping out of the way." The pod drifted toward the wreckage field, tumbling through scraps of steel and fractured hulls. Outside, broken ships glittered like a graveyard of stars. Inside, tension thickened between them. She leaned back, arms folded, her presence like a storm waiting for a direction. He, in contrast, began whistling off-key. "You're irritating," she said at last. "Good," he answered. "Means you're still alive enough to notice." Hours passed. The pod carried them farther into the asteroid belt, its navigation systems damaged, leaving them at the mercy of drift. Hunger gnawed, but neither admitted it. Instead, he filled the silence with words, as though talking might repair the pod itself. He asked where she came from. She ignored him. He asked what her ears could hear. She told him they were tuned to detect stupidity, and at the moment, the volume was unbearable. But then came a moment when her eyes betrayed the faintest curve, almost a smile. He caught it and grinned. "Careful, if you smile too much, the universe might mistake you for human." She stared at him, uncertain whether to laugh or strike him down. Instead, she asked, "Why do you speak as though death is a joke?" "Because if it isn't, then I've been doing this all wrong," he replied. The asteroids outside grew closer, and the pod rattled as it clipped fragments of rock. She took control without asking, her fingers gliding over the ruined console, sending threads of energy into circuits. The pod steadied. He watched her, not with fear or awe, but with a sort of quiet curiosity that unsettled her more than chains ever had. When the pod finally crash-landed on the surface of a barren asteroid, spilling them out into dust and darkness, they stood together in silence. She adjusted the torn edge of her cloak, ears sharp against the backdrop of jagged stone. He brushed dust off his dented armor and muttered, "Well, at least the view's terrible." She tilted her head at him. "You survived a crash landing, and your first thought is to insult the landscape?" "Would you rather I insult you?" he asked. She didn't answer. For the first time in her life, she wasn't entirely sure whether she wanted him to. The asteroid surface stretched out like an endless plain of cracked glass, sharp ridges glittering under the pale glow of distant suns. Their pod had shattered into fragments, most of which were now smoking in a shallow crater behind them. The soldier kicked a loose panel, muttering about how the emergency manual never mentioned anything about crash landings involving asteroids with bad attitudes. She ignored him at first, scanning the horizon with a predator's patience, but her ears twitched when he began humming a tune that was more groan than melody. "Stop that noise," she said without turning. "It's called music," he replied, shouldering his broken rifle as though it still had dignity. "Keeps morale up. It sounds like a dying generator." "Exactly. Authentic battlefield soundtrack." They walked in silence after that, boots crunching on crystalline dust. Above them, pieces of wreckage burned across the sky like falling stars. The soldier glanced upward and muttered, "Well, that's cheerful. Nothing says hope like flaming chunks of the ship that was supposed to save you." "You should conserve energy, not waste it on words," she said. "If I stop talking, I'll have to think about how hungry I am. Talking is safer." Her stride was effortless, each movement precise, while he stumbled over jagged rocks with the elegance of a malfunctioning droid. She watched him trip for the third time in 5 minutes and asked, "Do all humans lack balance?" "Only the charming ones," he answered. "The rest just fall harder." Eventually, they reached the edge of a canyon carved into the asteroid's crust. Below, faint lights flickered, not natural but mechanical, hidden among the shadows. He squinted and said, "Please tell me that's a friendly neighborhood." "There are no friendly neighborhoods here," she replied. Still, they descended, sliding down slopes of glittering dust until they reached the base. What waited for them was a half-buried wreck of an ancient station, its doors rusted and consoles long dead. The soldier tapped the surface with his boot. "Lovely fixer-upper. All it needs is air, power, food, and less of that smell." She pressed her palm against the corroded panel, and sparks danced from her skin into the metal. The doors groaned and slid apart, revealing a corridor lit by sputtering blue lights. He gave a low whistle. "Remind me to keep you around next time I forget my keys." The interior was a graveyard of technology, fallen drones, shattered terminals, walls scarred with blaster fire. The soldier picked up a broken drone head, examined it, then set it back down carefully. "Looks like someone else already had the housewarming party." They pressed deeper, her energy coaxing ancient systems to life, lights flickering in sequence as though remembering their purpose. Somewhere far above, the station's exterior sensors awakened, sending a pulse into space like a flare. She felt it immediately, ears twitching. "They will know we are here." "Good," he said, tightening the strap on his dented chest plate. "I was worried today would be boring." In one of the surviving chambers, they found storage crates sealed shut. He pried one open with a piece of metal and grinned when ration packs tumbled out. "Dinner is served," he announced. She eyed the packs with suspicion. "What is it?" "Probably not poison. Might be worse. That's the fun." He tore one open, sniffed it, and immediately gagged. "Okay, definitely worse." She took one anyway, sniffed it once, and then consumed it without a flicker of expression. He stared at her in disbelief. "You actually ate it?" "It is food," she said simply. "That's debatable." He poked at his ration as though it might fight back. "I think this stuff predates civilization." Later, as they rested among the crates, he leaned back against the wall, helmet tilted to the side, and asked, "So, are you planning to fry me with your sparkly fingers once you don't need me anymore?" She glanced at him, unreadable. "If I wanted you dead, you would already be ash." "Comforting," he said, stretching his legs. "But admit it, you'd miss my jokes." Her silence lingered until he wondered if she'd slipped into sleep. Then, almost too quiet to catch, she said, Your jokes are intolerable. He smiled into the dim light. That's just another way of saying memorable. The faint hum of the station grew louder as systems awakened under her influence. Somewhere in the darkness, machinery stirred. She straightened suddenly, ears sharp, eyes narrowing. He noticed and groaned. Let me guess, company? Drones, she said. Automated guardians. They will not distinguish between intruder and resident. Metal footsteps echoed down the corridor. The soldier rose, checked the energy cell of his battered rifle, and muttered, Great. First dinner, now dancing. As the first drone appeared in the doorway, its sensors glowing red, she stepped forward, hands raised, energy pulsing between her fingers. He aimed his rifle, grinning despite the odds. Let's see if we can convince them we're friendly. And if not, I hope you brought your sparkly fireworks. She glanced at him once, expression cold but edged with something softer. Stay behind me, human. Behind you. Where all the explosions happen. Perfect plan. The drones advanced, and together they prepared to face the storm. The first drone moved with insect precision, its metal frame clattering against the broken floor. The soldier lifted his rifle, muttering under his breath, If it asks me for identification, I'm giving it my laundry receipt. The weapon's muzzle flared weakly, sending a sputter of energy that barely singed the machine's outer shell. The drone rotated its sensors toward him, unimpressed. Before it could fire, she stepped forward, her fingers igniting with currents of light. The drone froze, its limbs twitching as her power invaded its circuits. With a twist of her wrist, the machine collapsed in a heap of silent metal. The soldier whistled low. Well, that's efficient. Remind me not to make you angry during arguments. Then do not argue, she replied, already turning as more drones scuttled from the shadows. They came in a swarm, sleek frames, red sensors glowing like angry eyes, weapons primed with mechanical patience. The soldier crouched behind a crate, firing bursts that ricocheted off walls. I think they're upset we broke into their bachelor pad. Her energy leapt from her hands like ribbons of lightning, striking drones midair and leaving their carcasses smoking. Still, more pressed forward, relentless. He ducked a blast that scorched the wall above him and shouted, Do you have a setting lower than incinerate? Maybe something like gentle nudge. Her ears twitched. Would you prefer I let them kill you? He fired again, missed, and rolled out of the way of another shot. Depends. Do they cook better than you? Because these ration packs are a crime. The battle dragged into the station's wider chamber, where twisted metal beams arched like ribs of some ancient beast. She strode through the wreckage with calm precision, cutting down machines as if the chaos were a rehearsed dance. He followed less gracefully, stumbling over debris, still cracking jokes between grunts. When the last drone fell, silence returned except for the hum of dying circuitry. The soldier leaned against a wall, breathing hard. That was fun. Let's never do it again. You would not survive another hour without me, she said. True, he admitted cheerfully, but I make excellent company while dying. She ignored him, kneeling beside a drone husk. Her hands glowed faintly as she reached inside its core, extracting a crystalline shard still humming with data. He crouched beside her, peering at it like a curious child. What's that? Their version of a family photo. It is a memory core, she said. It holds records of this station's purpose. Let me guess, party planning committee? Her silence told him otherwise. She touched the shard, sending her energy into its depths, and images flickered in the air above them. Holograms bloomed. Soldiers in unfamiliar armor, laboratories filled with glowing tanks, maps of star systems marked with red symbols. He watched wide-eyed, muttering, Yep, definitely not a party. She studied the holograms with a grim expression. This place was built to manufacture weapons like me. His grin faltered. So this is home? No, she said sharply, her voice colder than before. This is a grave. The hologram shifted again, showing her face, or rather, versions of it. Countless replicas with the same long ears and piercing eyes, suspended in vats of liquid. The soldier swallowed hard. Okay, that's creepy. I like you better when you were one of a kind. Her fingers trembled briefly. though she masked it by deactivating the shard. The chamber went dark again. He tried to lighten the air. Hey, look on the bright side. At least none of them had my sense of humor. Her gaze lingered on him, unreadable. That may be fortunate. They left the chamber and wandered deeper into the station's heart, where corridors curved like veins through ancient machinery. He kept talking to fill the silence, stories of training drills gone wrong, commanders who barked louder than their weapons, the time he accidentally shorted out a shuttle by spilling coffee into the controls. She listened without reply, though once he noticed her ears twitch at the mention of coffee. Finally, they reached a control nexus where shattered consoles surrounded a central dais. She approached it, placing her palm against the surface. Light surged, systems awakening like ghosts shaking off centuries of sleep. A deep vibration rippled through the floor. He said cautiously. You didn't just turn on the self-destruct, did you? Her eyes glowed faintly as she sifted through the data. A distress beacon has been activated. He froze. Distress beacon? As in, hey everybody, free snacks on this asteroid, come and get them? She turned toward him, her expression unreadable. They will come. Humans, aliens, both. None will ignore the signal. He sighed, slumping against the wall. Great. I always wanted to throw a galactic welcome party. Her gaze softened, just for an instant. Then prepare, human. The guests will not be kind. The hum of the activated beacon lingered like a pulse through the station's bones, a rhythm neither of them could ignore. The soldier rubbed the back of his neck, muttering, So, basically, you just shouted into the void. Here we are. Please attack us. Bold strategy. She stood at the center of the control dais, energy still faintly glowing in her hands. The beacon could not be silenced once awakened. The system was designed to override intruders. He sighed, tightening the straps on his battered armor. Well, that's just poor hospitality. I'd give this place 1 star if it had a review board. Her ears twitched, though she did not smile. Stars are rarely hospitable. The soldier chuckled. See, that's what I like about you. Always literal, never encouraging. Before he could make another joke, the station shuddered. Dust rained from the ceiling as distant impacts echoed through the corridors. He tilted his head. Knocking already? That was fast service. She tilted her head, listening beyond human range. 2 fleets, human and alien, both converging. He groaned. Of course. It's never just one side. It's always a family reunion with lasers. They hurried back through the broken corridors, weaving past dead drones and collapsed beams until they reached an observation deck overlooking the canyon outside. In the dark sky above the asteroid, lights streaked across the void. Dozens, then hundreds, warships dropping from faster-than-light transit. Engines burned bright as they unfolded into formation, surrounding the station like wolves circling prey. The soldier pressed his forehead to the glass. That's a lot of wolves. They have come for me, she said. Lucky you, he muttered. You're the galaxy's most popular date. The first wave of drop pods rained down, spearing into the canyon floor below. Armored troops spilled out in perfect formation, weapons gleaming. The soldier sighed, checking his rifle's meager charge. You know, I was hoping for some quiet tonight. Maybe a game of cards. But no, we get armies. Her expression hardened. We must move. Where? Into their welcoming arms. Deeper into the station, she said. There may be systems I can control. He followed, grumbling. Great. Nothing like hiding in a haunted weapons factory while 2 galactic powers shoot at each other over your pretty ears. She glanced at him sharply, though her voice was calm. Pretty. He nearly tripped over his own boots. I meant distinctive. Very aerodynamic. Probably helps with balance. Her ears twitched again, betraying something he couldn't name. They descended into the lower levels, chased by the thundering sounds of battle above. Explosions rattled the walls, and dust choked the air. Somewhere in the chaos, the soldier asked, So what's the plan? Do we wait until both sides blow each other up, then sneak away in the confusion? It is possible, she admitted, her tone dry. I like possible. It's better than impossible, which is my usual plan. At last they reached a chamber filled with dormant machinery. She pressed her palms to the floor, her energy flowing outward like veins of light. Old systems grown to life, and suddenly the walls themselves shifted. Hidden turrets emerged, panels sliding open to reveal rows of automated defenses. The soldier whistled. Now that's what I call redecorating. Very welcoming. The first wave of soldiers stormed through the corridors. Humans in heavy armor, voices barking commands. The turrets activated, spitting plasma fire, forcing them into cover. Behind them came alien warriors with chitinous armor and crackling spears of energy. The two sides clashed violently, the station echoing with screams and gunfire. He crouched beside her as she directed the defenses, with flicks of her hand. You know, if you ever get tired of being a weapon, you'd make an excellent interior designer. Very dramatic lighting. Her gaze flicked toward him briefly. You joke while death surrounds you. Of course, he said. If I stop joking, I'll realize how doomed we are. More explosions rocked the station. She redirected the turrets, buying them precious moments, but the enemy forces pressed closer with every wave. Finally, a blast tore through the chamber wall, sending both of them sprawling. Smoke billowed, and through it stepped figures in ceremonial armor, commanders from both factions, each one staring directly at her. The human commander raised his gauntlet. Return the asset. The alien leader hissed, his voice a reverberation of many tones. She belongs to us. Stand aside, human. The soldier scrambled to his feet, putting himself between them and her, though his rifle hung uselessly at his side. Funny thing, he said, she doesn't belong to either of you, and if you want her, you'll have to go through me. The commanders hesitated, amused. The human sneered. You would die for a weapon. He grinned, though his heart pounded. Not for a weapon. For her. Behind him, she froze, caught between disbelief and something far more fragile. For the first time in her life, the sound of battle around her seemed distant, and in that fragile silence, she whispered, almost to herself, Why do you love me, human? His answer came without hesitation, his voice steady despite the armies poised to strike. Because you're more than what they made you. The word struck deeper than any weapon, and though the chamber roared with fire and fury, something inside her changed forever. The chamber held its breath. Armies stood frozen, commanders poised, weapons humming with deadly light, yet the only thing that mattered was the soldier's ridiculous stance, half-bent, armor cracked, rifle empty, and his words, simple as a stone dropped in a still pond. She stared at him, the long ears that had marked her as alien trembling in a way no enemy had ever caused. The human commander barked a laugh. Pathetic. A soldier fallen out of rank, speaking of love to a weapon. You disgrace your kind. The alien leader hissed agreement. He is unworthy even of death. Step aside, human. The soldier raised his chin, defiant. Funny. You both agree on that, which tells me I must be doing something right. And then the floor shook, not from weapons, but from her. Energy rippled outward, tearing through the cracked chamber like a storm of light. Turrets shut down, drones crumbled into silence, and even the ships outside faltered as the station itself seemed to awaken under her will. Both armies staggered, blinded by radiance that poured from her hands, her eyes, her very presence. The soldier, squinting through the brilliance, muttered, Note to self, never complain about her cooking again. She turned to face the commanders, voice steady, stronger than she had ever known it. I am not your weapon. I am not your asset. You will not decide my fate. The alien commander snarled, raising his spear, but it melted in his grasp, dissolved by her power. The human general's armor locked, frozen, forcing him to the ground. Around them, soldiers panicked, unsure whether to fight or flee. She stepped forward, each word a verdict. I am not yours. Not theirs. Not anyone's. The soldier cleared his throat behind her. Except maybe mine? On weekends. Her ears flicked, and for the first time, she allowed herself the smallest laugh, soft but real. Do not ruin this. The glow receded slowly, leaving silence in its wake. Both armies withdrew, dragging their broken pride with them. The commanders, stripped of their authority, retreated under her gaze, and in minutes, the chamber was empty save for the two of them. The soldier let out a long breath, collapsing onto a broken crate. Well, that went smoothly. Nobody died, except maybe my nerves. She lowered herself beside him, her hands still faintly trembling. They will return. Others will come. They will never stop hunting. Let them try, he said, stretching his sore legs. I've got a few more jokes left. That should scare off half the galaxy. She turned to him then, truly turned, not as a soldier or a creation, but as herself. Why do you persist? You have no reason to stand with me. He met her eyes without hesitation. Because you've never had anyone stand with you before. And because you deserve more than chains and orders. You deserve, well, bad coffee, terrible music, and someone who'll trip over rocks just to make you laugh. Her silence lasted longer this time, but it was not the silence of disbelief. It was the silence of someone letting the words settle into places she never knew existed. Slowly, she leaned her head against a shoulder, her long ears brushing his armor. Perhaps, she murmured, your terrible music is not entirely intolerable. He grinned. Careful. That almost sounded like affection. Do not push your luck. They left the station behind, boarding a scavenged shuttle that groaned with every ignition. As they rose from the asteroid, flames still smoldering below, she glanced once at the wreckage of the place that had forged her. For the first time, she did not feel its weight. The soldier tapped the controls with unnecessary confidence. Next stop, somewhere with food that doesn't taste like recycled shoe leather. And quiet, she added. And maybe a view, he said. And no armies, she said. He laughed. You're asking for a miracle. She tilted her head, considering him, then said softly, perhaps I already have one. The shuttle vanished into the stars, leaving behind the echo of chains broken and a story rewritten, not of a weapon, but of a woman who had been loved for the first time, and of a soldier whose stubborn humor turned that love into something brighter than war. The end.